How's it going, everybody? Lampini here once again, and today we are going to be going over Week 9 of the 2024 NFL season. So Week 8 had some pretty crazy stuff happen, particularly to my Washington Commanders. We'll get over that when we review their game. But we're approaching the midway point of the season, and contenders are starting to prove to be pretenders and vice versa, and we're starting to see some teams collapse. We're starting to see some teams thrive. Let's get right into the predictions, shall we? So for our Thursday night game, we have the Houston Texans at the New York Jets. So once again, we are subjected to a terrible New York team in prime time. The New York Jets lost to the New England Patriots 25-22, and the Houston Texans defeated the Indianapolis Colts 23-20. So the Texans are now 6-2. They are one of 6 teams that are 6 wins and more. So they're the class of the NFL right now. They're doing very, very well. It was a close game against the Colts, but anytime it's a divisional matchup like this, I'm expecting it to be a little bit closer. CJ Stroud was 25-37 for 285 yards and a touchdown, 99.5 passer rating. And then Joe Mixon had 25 carries for 102 yards and a touchdown. So Texans are operating on all cylinders. They're doing really, really well. They're going to beat the Jets, obviously. But now that I got that out of the way, I want to talk a little bit about the Jets. I have never seen a team go so all in and have it fail this miserably. So they beat the Patriots, I think it was a London game actually, but they had beaten the Patriots pretty convincingly. Aaron Rodgers had a good game, and it was like a very encouraging win for the Jets is what I described it as. Healing win for the Jets is how I described it. But I think that was the last game that they won. Ever since then, they have been looking terrible. They just can't put it together. And it seems like the Jets are in panic mode. You know, they fired Robert Saleh, and now the defense isn't playing as well, which is interesting. They got Devontae Adams. He hasn't really been doing a whole lot since they got him in. They are sucking up to Aaron Rodgers way too much. I think they saw what Tom Brady did with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and thought, okay, if we give a veteran Hall of Fame quarterback the spotlight, all the power in the world, get his friends in, then he can thrive, he can lead, and we can just be a Super Bowl caliber team with that. But I don't think Rodgers is that kind of guy. I don't think that he is like Tom Brady, where he can will his team and make his team better just by being there. I think Rodgers is a little too low key. He clearly, he's not taking responsibility for himself. That's what the narrative is, at least. But it's just falling apart. Rodgers is not the man that he used to be. This is his age 41 season. He's turning 41 soon. And quarterbacks have limited success once they reach their 40s. Again, not everyone is Tom Brady. That being said, he did have a good game against the Patriots this week. He was 17 of 28 for 233 yards, 2 touchdowns, a 111.2 passer rating. So he had a good game, but you can't let the Patriots score 25 points against you. That was the big problem. And they're now 2-6. And they are at the very bottom of the AFC. The only team that's worse than them is the Tennessee Titans. So like I said, I've never seen a team go so all in like this, or all in, quote unquote, in the terms of like getting their stars, doing this, doing that to make a push for the Super Bowl, and having it fail this miserably. And the worst part is they are all in, and if this fails, like, where do they go from here? If Aaron Rodgers retires, they need to get another new quarterback. They are going to need to get a new head coach. They're in full rebuild mode again at 2-6. So that playoff drought that they've had since 2010, I don't see it changing anytime soon because they are in no position to make the playoffs. I'm going with the Houston Texans on this game, though. So next up, we have the Washington Commanders at the New York Giants. So the Washington Commanders beat the Bears on a last-second Hail Mary. It's the talk of the NFL. It's a crazy victory. I'm incredibly happy that it happened, but we should have won that game to begin with. We were doing extremely well in the first half. The problem is we weren't able to finish drives. We were able to move the ball. It was like against the Giants, where we were able to move the ball, but we could not score touchdowns. So it was 9-0 going into the half. Positive. We were up by 2 scores, and the Bears had not scored a single point in the first half. So our defense was playing extremely well. But we can't, if you get into the red zone or in scoring position 3 times, 9-0 could easily be 13-0 or 17-0, right? Even 21-0 if we get in the end zone. We weren't able to do that. And I wouldn't say it's concerning because we have scored plenty in other games. So I think it's just like just bad luck, I guess, and not the best play calling, not being able to put it together. But we were dominating that game, and then DeAndre Swift got that big run. Then the Bears offense was going, and I'm like, damn, they're about to steal one from us. We had this in the palm of our hands, and we freaking blew it. And then we got bailed out by a Hail Mary, which was, that was something. Jaden Daniels was 21 of 38 for 326 yards and a touchdown, 92.7 passer rating. And then Terry McLaurin had 125 yards off 5 receptions. So he's gearing up to have probably the best season of his career. Regarding the rib injury, Jaden Daniels didn't show it too much. I think that he did pretty good. Again, like I said, we got in the red zone so many times, we just could not capitalize, which is a big problem. But I would much rather us have a problem like settling for field goals than having to punt all the time. Because that at least means that we're able to move the ball. And if we're able to move the ball, then that means that we're in a better position to score touchdowns. And Chris Seibert, the Cyborg, our new kicker, is doing extremely well. You know, he made 7 field goals against the Giants. He made 4 field goals in this game. So good stuff there. As for the Giants, they are who they are. Like we all know who the Giants are at this point. They lost to the Steelers 26-18. Daniel Jones was 24-38, 264 yards and an interception. He was sacked 4 times. Again, they are who they are. We all know who they are. They are a bottom 5 team in the NFL. They need to move on from Daniel Jones after this season, and they need to get some new, fresh blood in there. The only problem is this quarterback class is pretty weak, so I don't know if they go after a free agent or something, but the Giants are in a bad spot. But they always play us hard. The Giants always play us hard, and it's a divisional round matchup, so you never know what could happen. But I am still going to go with the Washington Commanders. We really should win this game, and we're going to improve to 7-2. Wow, it's incredible. Commanders being 7-2. I never thought I'd see the day, but I'm going with Washington. So next up, we have the Dallas Cowboys at the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 31-26. And the Cowboys, with another embarrassing loss to an injured San Francisco 49ers team, they lost 30-24. Dak Prescott was 25 of 38 for 243 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and then a 79.2 passer rating. And then CeeDee Lamb had 13 receptions for 146 yards and 2 touchdowns. So CeeDee Lamb cooked. He did a very good job, and Dak Prescott threw 2 interceptions, and the 49ers beat him. The Cowboys are now 3-3. I think that, you know, they were very good the last couple years as a regular season team. They were getting by on high-end talent. They were dominating the competition. But I think their formula is stale now. Like, they are the same team 3 years ago than they are now, especially the fact that they have Ezekiel Elliott now. Like, the Cowboys, with the exception of guys like Micah Parsons and Micah Parsons and CeeDee Lamb, they're the same team that they were in 2017 and 2018. They still have Dak. Hell, they still have Zeke. They have Hall of Famers like Zach Martin on the offensive line. And they have, what's that guy's name? DeMarcus Lawrence on the defensive line. But they are an aging squad, and they're the same team that they were 5-6 years ago. And that's why they're not getting the job done. And it's all because of Jerry Jones. Jerry Jones is the reason why the Cowboys have not been successful. It doesn't matter how good you are, how much talent you have, you can never overcome bad ownership. So Jerry Jones is not going to let go of this team anytime soon. He has a tighter grip on it than Dan Snyder had on Washington. So the Cowboys are not going to win anything while he's still the owner. I am going to go with the Falcons on this one because the Falcons are coming off of a very strong performance. Kirk Cousins was 23 of 29, 276 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 145.9 passer rating. I believe this is the second game this season where Kirk Cousins has thrown for 4 touchdowns. When Kirk Cousins cooks, he cooks. He has a very, very good game. And then he was able to get the ball spread out to his team. Darnell Mooney had a touchdown. Bijan Robinson had a touchdown. And Kyle Pitts had 2 touchdowns, which is more touchdowns than Kyle Pitts has ever had in some seasons. He only had 1 touchdown in his rookie year. So, yeah, the Falcons are going to win this one. They're going to improve to 6-3. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are getting very injured right now. So the Buccaneers looked like they were going to run away with that division, and they were looking very strong. But now it looks like it's going to be the Falcons to lose, especially if they win this game and improve to 6-3. So I'm going with the Falcons. Next up, we have the Miami Dolphins at the Buffalo Bills. It's a divisional round matchup once again, and the Dolphins had their first game with Tua Tagovailoa back. That being said, they still lost on a last-second field goal to the Arizona Cardinals. Tua Tagovailoa had a pretty good game, though. He was 28 of 38 for 234 yards and a touchdown, a 97.9 passer rating. Tua's back from his concussion, and he played well, but I think that the Dolphins just still aren't a very good unit, or the Cardinals are just that good. I'm not really sure. But I don't think they're going to beat the Buffalo Bills because they're the highest, they have the best point differential in the AFC right now. Spoilers when we go into that. And they were operating on all cylinders, defeating the Seattle Seahawks. Josh Allen was 24-34 for 283 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, and a 102.9 passer rating. So Josh Allen threw his first interception of the season, and it happened in Game 8 of the season. So it'll be interesting to see how far Josh Allen can go without throwing any more interceptions. Very impressive showing by him. And then James Cook had 2 rushing touchdowns as well. So scoring 31 points, that's what the Bills do. And I know I've said this a lot too. We know the Bills are a powerhouse in the regular season. They need to get it done in the postseason for us to really take them seriously. But they are operating on all cylinders. They're doing extremely well. I'm going with the Bills on this one. I know it's a divisional round matchup, but I don't think the Dolphins are good enough to spur that that upset, shall we say. So I'm going with the Bills. So next up, we have the Las Vegas Raiders at the Cincinnati Bengals. Both these teams are coming off of losses. I expected that from the Raiders. I did not expect that from the Bengals. I really thought the Bengals were going to win that game. I think it was a winnable game for them, and they got crushed. As for the Raiders, they had a very close game against the Kansas City Chiefs, but it's a divisional round matchup, so the Raiders play the Chiefs twice every year, so I'm not really surprised that it was close, but I'm not surprised that they lost either. Gardner Minshew had a pretty good game, though. He was 24-30, 209 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 117.9 passer rating. But again, I mean, the Raiders are 2-6. They're one of the worst teams in the league. They need to commit to a full rebuild. I think last year they finished 9-8 or 8-9, and that was the worst thing that could have happened to them because it tanked their draft potential, and they weren't able to do as much as they wanted to do in the draft, or improve as much in the draft as they wanted. So they stayed in mediocrity hell. As for the Bengals, this is one of the games that I got wrong. I picked the Bengals to beat the Eagles, and I was very surprised that they lost. They lost 37-17, and the Eagles really, really crushed them in the second, third, and fourth quarter where they scored over 10 points in every single one. Joe Burrow was 26-37 for 234 yards, a touchdown, and an interception for an 84.7 passer rating. So I am going to go with the Bengals on this one. I do think that they are going to win, but they can't give up games like that against the Eagles, but I'm going with the Bengals. All right, so this next game, we have the Los Angeles Chargers at the Cleveland Browns. Both teams are coming off of wins. The Chargers did a very good job beating the Saints 26-8. I think the Saints had a safety, which is why their score is a little bit wonky. But they looked really good, and Justin Herbert probably had his best game of the season. He was 20 of 32 for 279 yards and 2 touchdowns, 111.3 passer rating. The Chargers are 4-3, but they haven't really made a lot of noise in the NFL right now. They've just kind of been very average to mid. I don't think they're in a position to make the playoffs right now. They need to really go on a run, and they need to win games like this against the Browns. But Browns are finally free of Deshaun Watson. Jameis Winston came into the game, and we all love him, and he did a very good job. He was 27 of 41 for 334 yards, 3 touchdowns, 115.3 passer rating, no interceptions. So this is the thing. You look at what Joe Flacco did last year with the Browns. Can Jameis Winston do something similar? Are the Browns a different team now that they have Jameis Winston? Now, I will say this. The Browns always seem to do well against the Ravens. Deshaun Watson's best game as a Brown was against the Ravens. The Browns are like the Giants to the Commanders, where the Browns always seem to have the Ravens' number. So, I mean, I would kind of take that with a grain of salt, but Jameis Winston might be able to get more out of this Browns roster than Deshaun Watson. Well, obviously he's going to be able to, but he may turn them into kind of a winning team. You never know. So that being said, I am still going to go with the Chargers, though. I think they are the better team. I think they're still going to beat the Browns. But it's going to be a very close game, and don't be surprised if they upset them. So next up, we have the New England Patriots at the Tennessee Titans. I'm going to glance over this one just because these are two of the worst teams in the entire NFL. Titans are 1-6. They do not have a lot going for them. We know that, they don't have a quarterback. Will Levis has officially been benched. Mason Rudolph is now the starter. They're going to have to try and get someone in the draft, but there's not a lot of good quarterbacks, so they're in all kinds of trouble, basically. As for the Patriots, it's good to know that even when they don't have Bill Belichick, even when they don't have Tom Brady, they still find a way to stick it to the Jets. Drake May left the game early with an injury, so Jacoby Brissett had to come in, and he came in, and he didn't even play all that well, but he still managed to do enough to win. Whoever wins, it doesn't matter. Like, it's gonna hurt whoever's there. It's gonna hurt their draft stock, whoever it is. So flip a coin. I'm going with the Titans on this one. They have a really good defense, so I think that Mason Rudolph is enough of a gunslinger that he can score enough points. And the Titans defense has low-key been kind of okay. He says that after the Lions put up 50 points against them. But it's at home. The Patriots aren't a very good team either. I'm going to go with the Titans. I think that they are going to win, but it doesn't really matter either way. So I'm going with the Titans. Next up, we have the New Orleans Saints at the Carolina Panthers. This game is very interesting to me because the Panthers actually might have a chance to win this game because the Saints are getting worse by the week. Derek Carr is still out. Spencer Rattler isn't it. Jake Haener actually came into play for the Saints. I didn't see the game, but I'm assuming it's because Spencer Rattler left with an injury because he didn't throw any interceptions or anything like that. But the Saints are such a mess. And then the Panthers, they lost to the Broncos 28-14. Bryce Young was 24-37 for 224 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and a 76.9 passer rating. If you're able to score 2 touchdowns against the Saints, you might actually have a good chance at beating them. Believe it or not, guys, I'm going to go with the Panthers. It's a divisional round matchup. It's at home. I think the Panthers are going to win just because the Saints are so injured to hell, and they're so in disarray right now that I think that this is a game that the Panthers are going to be able to win. It's going to be a close game, but I think the Panthers are healthier. They're just a bad team, but I think they're going to win. It's a bold prediction, surely, to go with the worst team in the league, but I think right now the Saints are the worst with how many injuries they've gone through. So I'm going with the Saints. Sorry, I'm going with the Panthers. So next up, we have an interesting game. We have the Denver Broncos at the Baltimore Ravens. Both these teams are 5-3 somehow, but when you look at the power rankings and you look at how well you think each team is, I would say that the Ravens are still better. However, the Broncos have a higher point differential than the Ravens. Somehow, the Broncos are getting it done. The reason why they're getting it done is their defense is third in points allowed and yards allowed. So while their offense is kind of floundering, they are doing a good job keeping things consistent with their defense. Now, that being said, Bo Nix had the best game of his career so far. He was 28-37 for 284 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 124.2 passer rating through no interceptions. So maybe the Broncos are starting to put it together right now, but they're in the playoff race right now. They're vying for a wild card spot, but I don't think they're going to beat the Ravens. I really don't. Derrick Henry had another good game, scored a touchdown. Lamar Jackson had a good game. They just fell short against the Cleveland Browns. But I think this is going to be a good get right game for them. I think they're going to get things back on. And the Denver Broncos have not really beaten anyone of note, really. If you look at their statistics this year, they have beaten the Buccaneers, which was a big win. I want to say that was a big win. But they beat the Jets, they beat the Raiders, they beat the Saints, and they beat the Panthers. You're looking at all those teams are potential bottom 5, bottom 6 teams. So, yes, the Broncos are 5-3, but I wouldn't be surprised if they really just fell off a cliff after this. But this is going to be a very good litmus test for them to see how the Broncos fare against an actual playoff team in the Baltimore Ravens. I'm going with the Ravens on this one. They need to win. They need to win after the Browns beat them. And I don't think the Broncos, despite their defense being good, I don't think they're going to offer much resistance. And I think Derrick Henry's going to run roughshod all over them. I am going with the Ravens. So now we enter the 4 o'clock slot. we have the Jacksonville Jaguars at the Philadelphia Eagles. So the Jaguars are starting to get some momentum here. They lost to the Packers 30-27, but they actually played like a regular football team, which is great. Trevor Lawrence was 21 of 32 for 308 yards, 2 touchdowns, an interception, and 104.7 passer rating. So he did pretty well. But the Eagles did really well as well. Jalen Hurts scored 4 touchdowns for them. It was very impressive. He rushed for 3 and then was 16 for 20 for 236 yards and a touchdown, 132.5 passer rating. So he did very well. Saquon Barkley had 108 yards off of 22 carries as well. Their offense is operating on all cylinders. Nick Sirianni is coaching for his job right now, yet he still finds a way to keep winning these games. So, I mean, it's pretty admirable. The Eagles are 5-2. They're right on the Commanders' heels. That's why the Commanders cannot afford to lose a game, because right now a loss by the Commanders and a win by the Eagles means that they're tied for first place. We can't have that happen, so the Commanders need to stay on top and keep winning these games. But I do think the Eagles are going to win this one. If the Jaguars end up winning, then I mean it's going to be interesting because like the Eagles are still 5-2. So I don't know if they're going to fire Nick Sirianni after their next loss. I think they're going to fire him at the end of the season. But if the Jaguars lose, then Doug Peterson might be gone. I don't know. It's going to be an interesting game. I think it's going to be a lot closer than a lot of people expect. But I am still going to go with the Eagles. I think they're going to win. So next up, we have the Chicago Bears at the Arizona Cardinals. The Cardinals are surprisingly 4-4, and the Bears are 4-3. They had a chance to beat the Commanders, but as you all know, on the last play of the game, they blew it. Just like the double doink and a lot of other things that the Bears have had to deal with. But that being said, again, so yes, the Bears came very close to winning an ugly game and stealing victory, but Caleb Williams was not good for the majority of this game. I think before the fourth quarter started, he was like 3 for 8 or something crazy like that. But at the end of the game, he was 10 of 24 for 131 yards, 59.5 passer rating, 10 of 24. So he made some pretty good plays in the fourth quarter, I will say that. That moved the chains, and he was playing very well, and he showed some flashes. But it was not a good game by Caleb Williams. DeAndre Swift had a good game, though. He had 129 yards off of 18 carries for a touchdown. Obviously, he had that 56-yard touchdown that got the Bears back into the game. But very concerned about their offense. They did score 15 points. But, again, 0 points in the first half. Doing that is not going to lend itself to wins in most games. So they deserve to lose. So, yes, they deserve to lose. They did lose to the Bears. But anyway, as for the Cardinals, they beat the Dolphins 28-27. Kyler Murray had a pretty good game. He was 26 of 36 for 307 yards and 2 touchdowns for 116.3 passer rating. 2/3 of his yards went to 2 receivers. Trey McBride, the tight end, was 124 yards off of 9 receptions. And then Marvin Harrison Jr. had 6 receptions for 111 yards and a touchdown. So receivers were doing pretty well. Cardinals scored 28 points. This is going to be an interesting game because the Bears were vying for a wild card spot. If they drop 2 in a row and fall to 4-4, that is not going to look good for them at all. So this is a must-win for the Bears, but the Cardinals are going to be no slouch. It's at home though, and the Bears are 0-3 on the road as well. I don't see that streak continuing for the Bears, being 0-3 on the road. I am going to go with the Bears. I do think they're going to beat the Cardinals. The Bears have more to fight for. They're fighting for a wild card spot. They have to contend with the Vikings, the Packers, and the Eagles for that wild card spot. And they're even vying with the Cardinals too. Now that I think about it, because if the Cardinals win, they're 5-4. They're above 500. So this is an important game for both teams to win. That being said, though, I am going with the Bears. I think they're going to win. So next up, a very interesting game. We have the Detroit Lions at the Green Bay Packers. The Lions are, spoiler, are number 1 in the power rankings for me. They are 6-1. They have a plus 100 point differential midway through the season. If they keep that up, they'll have a plus 200 point differential. For full disclosure, the 2024 Ravens had a plus 200 point differential. The 2019 Ravens had a .200 point differential. So we would be looking at probably the best Lions team to ever exist outside of the championship winning ones in the 50s. They have not been this good for the last 70 years. They are coming off a 52-14 throttling against the Tennessee Titans. Yes, the Tennessee Titans are not a good team, but let me tell you something. When you play a bad team, you should win 52-14. You know what I mean? So Jared Goff was 12 of 15 for 85 yards, but he threw for 3 touchdowns at 129.9 passer rating. And then Jahmyr Gibbs had 11 carries for 127 yards and a touchdown. So again, operating on all cylinders, the Lions are. I think the Lions are going to win this game purely because Jordan Love got hurt again. And Malik Willis came in to play once again. He did pretty good. And then Josh Jacobs took a lot of the strain. He had 25 carries for 127 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. Jordan Love may be out for a while because he left the game with a groin injury. So it might be worse than his previous injury. But I don't know, man. The Packers have done very well, 6-2, fighting through Jordan Love's injuries. Malik Willis hops back in again, and hopefully they can get a win here, but not against the Lions. I don't think Lions are the best team in the league. I think the Lions are going to win to improve to 7-1, and they're operating on all cylinders. So next up, we have the Los Angeles Rams at the Seattle Seahawks. So Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp are both back for the Rams, and what a difference it makes for this team. They beat the Vikings 30-20, which was a big upset. The Vikings have dropped 2 straight games since their bye week, and Matt Stafford had the best game of the year so far for him. He was 25 of 34 for 279 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception, 124.5 passer rating. And then Cooper Kupp had a receiving touchdown, and Puka Nacua had over 100 yards receiving. When Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua play, their offense is dangerous. You like a team to have a lot of depth and operate without stars, and then you have some teams that have stars, and they just wipe the floor. For this reason, and another reason why, because if you remember, the Rams got hot last year when their players were healthy. When the Rams are healthy, we saw what the Rams can do when they're healthy. They won the Super Bowl in 2021. So I think that if the Rams manage to stay healthy, they have a chance to win this division. Looking at the NFC West, we have the Seahawks, who are 4-4. We have the Cardinals that are 4-4. And then we have the San Francisco 49ers on top of that division. Well, no, actually they're not. They're also 4-4. So that division is wide open for the Rams to take it. And if they keep playing like they did last week, they have a chance to do it. And I do think they are going to beat the Seahawks. The Seahawks have really, really been on a slide since they finished 3-0. They've been 1-4 since then. So I do think that they are going to win. Geno Smith had another pedestrian game. I think that he's kind of reached his ceiling with the Seahawks, and they need to start looking for another guy. Maybe put Sam Howell in, see how he does. But the Seahawks are stuck in mediocrity hell ever since Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson left. So they're trying to find their identity without that. I'm going with the Rams to improve to 4-4. And depending on what happens, the Rams might make it to first place again. So I'm going with the Rams. So next up, we have the Indianapolis Colts at the Minnesota Vikings. The Colts are 4-4. The Vikings are 5-2. They have dropped 2 straight since their bye week. But I do think they are going to beat the Colts because the Colts live and die by Anthony Richardson. And the tough thing with him is he did not play a lot in college. He wasn't even that good in college. The Colts drafted him 4th overall purely based on his athletic potential and to see if he can get where they want him to be. You know what I mean? And it's a very interesting situation because I've never seen a team do this where they've invested so much on such a raw quarterback. Josh Allen's an example, but I think he wasn't even as raw as Anthony Richardson. AR was 10 of 32 for 175 yards, a touchdown and interception for a 48.3 passer rating. If Anthony Richardson does not get things going soon, what are the Colts going to do? Like, they are stuck with a guy that is just not going to get there. And GMs are going to lose their job. Coaches are going to lose their job. The Colts are in a very, very tough situation right now with Anthony Richardson. And I saw the whole thing about him tapping out because he said he was tired. It's not what you want to hear from your star quarterback, especially when you're touted as being this physical phenom and you leave the game because you're tired. That's inexcusable. Like, that's insane. I think the Vikings are going to win. They had a good game. They just lost to the Rams. Sam Darnold didn't throw any interceptions. Justin Jefferson had 8 receptions for 115 yards. He's doing what he does best. But what is happening right now with the Colts and Anthony Richardson is amazing to me, because so much talent, potential talent, but you don't win games off potential. You have to put it together. And he's getting hurt. This is basically his rookie year. What are they going to do? Are they going to run with him again in 2025? What if he doesn't work out? That's another lost year. Like, the Colts are in big trouble because they're investing in a guy that may not pay dividends for them, and they may be in for another lost season. Like, if Anthony Richardson doesn't pay off, you have 2023, 2024, and 2025 down the drain trying to wait for this guy to develop and turn into the guy that you want him to turn into. And if it doesn't happen, then those are 3 lost years. And that's not cool for the fans. And their search for a quarterback after Andrew Luck will continue. But I'm going with the Vikings. I think they're going to win. All right, guys. So last but not least, we have the Monday night game. We have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the Kansas City Chiefs. Super Bowl. I don't know what Super Bowl was, but it's a Super Bowl rematch. The only guys that are returning that played in that game were Mahomes and Kelsey, just about. The Buccaneers are a completely new roster. Well, I guess not a completely new roster, but they have Baker Mayfield, new team, new quarterback. The Buccaneers have really been on a slide recently. They were doing extremely well early on in the season, but injuries have throttled them. No Mike Evans, no Chris Godwin. Baker Mayfield was a gunslinger in their game against the Falcons. They barely lost, 31-26. Baker was 37 of 50 for 330 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, a 94.6 passer rating. I mean, a pretty average game, but he threw the ball 50 times, so interceptions are going to happen when you throw the ball 50 times. As for the Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes was 27 of 38 for 262 yards, 2 touchdowns, and interception for a 96.6 passer rating. One of his better games, but still threw an interception. Xavier Worthy and Travis Kelce were the 2 receivers who caught those 2 touchdowns. The Chiefs are winning ugly, but they're still 7-0, and right now I don't see a lot of teams that can beat them. It's coming down to maybe the Texans, Ravens, or Bills that are going to beat them, but they're going to have to do it in the playoffs. And if the Chiefs are 7-0 and they get that first-round bye, they're already at a distinct advantage. The Chiefs are kings of the NFL right now, and even when they win ugly and they don't look good, they still find a way to stay undefeated. It's crazy. They are in full dynasty mode right now, 2-time reigning champions. Even though Mahomes is playing probably the worst in his career, having the worst season statistically of his career, they're still finding ways to win. Their defense is elite. Their offense is doing just enough to get by. I mean, they scored 27 points for crying out loud, so they must still be doing something right on offense. They are going to beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Buccaneers are too injured. It's at home. It's in prime time. It's at Arrowhead. The Chiefs are going to win to improve to 8-0. Wow, who would have thought, huh? So now that that's done, we are going to go over the point differentials again. So, if you're new, point differentials are a great way for me to quantify how good certain teams are, because it shows me how much they're beating a lot of other teams. So, we're going with the AFC first. The Buffalo Bills are top of the AFC point differentials in positive 84. They're still looking like the crop of the AFC. Pittsburgh Steelers are number 2 at 68, and the Denver Broncos are number 3 in plus 53 in their point differential, which I think is very, very impressive. Again, very deceiving when you think about the team that they have beaten, because if you look at it, who did I say that they beat? They beat the Buccaneers, Jets, Raiders, Saints, and Panthers. So if we go Panthers, if we go Saints, if we go Raiders, and who else did they beat? They beat the Raiders and Jets. We go to the Jets, and then the fifth one was the Buccaneers. But look at these point differentials. I highlighted all of them. They're all negative except for the Buccaneers. So they're not beating good teams, and that's where point differentials can be a little deceiving, right? You got to figure out who these teams are beating, and if they're beating a bunch of bad teams, then it's like, well, how good are they really? Is their point differential kind of deceiving, right? But the Bills' point differential isn't deceiving. But conversely, you look at a team like the Houston Texans, which have a plus 9 point differential, but they're 6-2 and they're playing extremely well. So a lot goes into it. Point differentials are not a exact science, but they give you a good idea of where some teams are. And then if we go into the NFC, speaking of where teams are, you can see the Detroit Lions have the highest point differential in the NFL at positive 100, and the Washington Commanders are number 2 at positive 69. Nice. But I can't believe what I'm seeing. I say it every year, but every game, every week. But Commanders are 6-2. They are one of 3 teams in the NFC with 6 wins. And then you look at the AFC, and the AFC has obviously the Chiefs, and then they have the Bills, Texans, Steelers with 6 wins. So that gives you an idea of where all those teams are in terms of point differential. And then, of course, the Carolina Panthers are minus 147 in their point differential. I mean, they could go 1-15, but they're playing the Saints. I think there's a good chance that they're going to win that game just because the Saints are so bad. The Saints are finally in the negative of their point differential after their impressive 2-week showing in weeks 1 and 2. So there's that. But that's about the end of the point differentials. Now we're going to go into the power rankings. First things first, yes, the Lions are number 1 in my power rankings. I think that they have not only won, but they've looked the best in victory. Yes, the Chiefs are undefeated, but this is how I always quantify the power rankings. If the Lions went head-to-head with the Chiefs, I think they would win. So that's why I'm putting the Lions at number 1. Number 2, I'm going to go with the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm going to put them at number 2 because they're still undefeated. They still have a positive 50-point differential. They're winning ugly, but they're still winning. And I think they're going to win again this week and improve to 8-0. Number 3, I'm going to go with the Buffalo Bills because highest point differential in the AFC, and they are still running the table at 6-2. We all know how good they are. They're pretty much playing up to, and this was supposed to be a reloading year for them because they lost Stephon Diggs, but they've done incredibly well to keep the train rolling, and they're still the cream of the crop in the NFC or the NFL. So very impressive showing by them. The Vikings are falling out of the point. They're falling out of the top 5 here. And then, where else do we go from here? We could put the Ravens in the top 5, but losing to the Browns, I think, takes them out. They could very well return next week if they win. But what I'm going to do is I am going to put the Washington Commanders in at number 4 again, mainly because their defense played very well against the Bears. 0 points in the first half is very encouraging. The defense was their point of concern. And the fact that their defense played as well as it did, with the exception of kind of falling apart in the second half, I think that bodes very well for the Washington Commanders. And I think they're getting better as the weeks go on, which I think is very, very impressive. Their offense was great, but now their defense is starting to catch up with them. And if they're getting even better than that, yeah, I'm putting them 4th in the power rankings. Now, what do we do with number 5? Number 5 for me is either going to be the Houston Texans or the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I am going to go with the Steelers for number 5 in the power rankings. Why do I have them over the Texans? If you look at their points for, the Texans have only scored 1 more point than the Pittsburgh Steelers have throughout the entire year. However, the Texans have allowed 179 points. The Steelers have allowed 119 points. So the Steelers' defense is still elite like it always is year in and year out. But ever since Russell Wilson has taken over this offense, they have looked really, really well as a game manager. As a game manager, he has really taken this team by the reins and has looked really, really well. So the Steelers' defense, they're 2nd in points allowed. It's all you can ask for, and they're 15th in points on offense, positive 68 point differential. I don't see how they can't be number 5, and they're still healthy. They're still playing on all cylinders. So I have the Steelers at number 5. So the power rankings: number 1, we have the Lions. Number 2, we have the Chiefs. Number 3, we have the Buffalo Bills. Number 4, we have the Washington Commanders, and rounding it out at number 5, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers. The power rankings are changing a lot, but the Lions, Chiefs, and Bills have always stayed in it. and the Commanders are finding their way in it too. I never would have thought. The most exciting season that the Commanders have ever been a part of since 1991, certainly in my lifetime. I'm loving it. I can't wait. We're approaching the midway point of the season. These teams have started out well in the first half. It's all about it's all about how you finish, though. So I'll be back next week with Week 10. I will see you guys next time. Let's hope I do well with my picks, and I'll see you guys later.